Time for sound design. Today I'm going to explain how I made this track. So how I started this track is with the Drumbrute Impact, and the first thing I did, I was basically just playing around with this drum machine, creating different grooves. And when I stumbled upon this part, I thought, oh, here there's something that's interesting, let's record it into Ableton. The part that you kind of became the drum part of the chorus, so it sounds like this on its own. Basically what you hear is a kick drum, a snare, and then I think it's the open hi-hat with the decay almost all the way open. So you hear it's almost like a cymbal, very prominent and energetic hi-hat. And the decay is quite open of the kick drum as well, so it's almost like a bass. So I just recorded the mono out of the Drumbrute, but I also thought like this part is very energetic, so I need to have another part like a verse. So basically I muted the hi-hat for the variation, which is drums 2 here on the second channel, and that sounds like this on its own. So yeah, the other sound that's there is the FM drum. So with these two drum parts, I started building out the track. I will link down all the samples below. So the first thing I did is to get this snare drum from an old hip-hop record. So I just only took out the snare, and then together with the drums it sounds like this. Then for the first part, for the intro of the song, I didn't want to use the Drumbrute drum loops, so I took a kick from Ableton instead and built out this pattern. Some extra snares in there. And I used that kick drum also in the transition, in the bridge here. So with these drum parts, I went to a synthesizer in Ableton and I used the drift synthesizer again. I actually took a preset, the homebound lead, and I adjusted some of the parameters and also created automation of the low-pass filters. So a very simple pattern. I choose the key of D sharp minor. Then the filter opens. So it's basically the same loop all throughout. And then, so together with that, I used one of my own sounds from my sample library. And I will link down the video where I created that sound as well. And that sound is a patch that I made with the analog synthesizer in Ableton. And it sounds like this. And what I play here is just an F sharp and then an E sharp or an F. All throughout, and then together with the other synth, sounds like this. Very simple. Together with the drums. And then another sample I used for the transition to the main part, or at the start of the main part, is this kind of, well, I just play it. It's also from an old hip-hop record. And then I did some EQ and a delay on top of it, and it sounds like this. So it's one of those sounds that you don't necessarily immediately hear, but now that you heard it separately, you should be able to tell to hear it. So this sound kind of gives it an extra kind of energy boost at the start of the beat. And it's repeated twice, so every 4 bars in the 8-bar section of the chorus. Let's see, what else do we have? So on below the entire track is some vinyl crackle. Same Redman album, different song. Just took a bit at the beginning of the song and looped it with a low cut EQ to get that rumble out of the sample. And that's basically the main track. Then when you get to the bridge, which you only hear once, there is a extra percussion, and this is from an Offspring song, the intro. And then without, so the original sounds like this. And then there's a low cut EQ and a flanger on top of it. And together with that, there is a Lauryn Hill sample from the song Everything is Everything, where I took the stab from the intro and then I reversed this. Now first I put some delay on it, as you can see here. Then I flattened and freezed it and reversed it, and then you hear this. And then together with everything else in the bridge, it sounds like this. So that's basically all the layers that are in this track. Now I will talk a little bit more about the arrangement and the variations that I created to basically make this from a 20-bar loop into a 3-minute track. So as you can see here, I marked with the markers in Ableton. So you have the intro is 4 bars, then there's part 1, which is 8 bars. Part 2 is 8 bars. I add the synths. The second synth. Then part 3 is the chorus. So that basically means the part with the most energy, and the filter is also all the way open, or not all the way open, but it's most open. I have the extra slightly creepy sound. Then there's a 2-bar bridge, and then it goes back to part 1, but it's a variation. So I mute a few of the synth notes at the beginning and also a few of the snares. And what I did here is I duplicated the synth, the track 4, the homebound synth, the drift synth, and I reversed it and then muted a few parts. So basically what you get is this. And then together with the synth, it sounds like this. So you create an extra kind of element. Then part 2 is the same, part 3 is the same. And then after that, there's a break. And here in the break, I introduce the kick from the intro again, take away the synth, and then also introduce the percussion from the bridge again. But in this part, I now muted the flanger. So you just hear the percussion without that. So it sounds like this. And I also lowered the volume a little bit. So in total, it sounds like this. Or like with the transition. And then the second part of the break is basically the build up back to the chorus. So what I did here is I closed the filter all the way on the synthesizer, on the main synthesizer line, and slowly over 8 bars open it up. And then back to the chorus. And then here I repeat the chorus twice before going to the outro. And what I did there is I created a variation of the drum part. So the second drum part, which has less energy. What I did here, I wanted to create a sort of filtered version. The first thing I did is I pitched it down 1 octave and I changed the transient settings here on the left. So you have preserve transients, and then you have the forward arrow and put this on 30, so you get a shorter envelope. So that sounds like this. And on top of that, I also filtered some of the low end out, but together with everything else, it sounds like this. So it's a really nice sort of, you still have drums, but it doesn't sound so heavy and so big as in the chorus. And the other thing I do here in the ending of the song is I bring back the reversed step with the delay from the bridge. You only hear it here in the bridge, and then you hear it in the outro. So that's basically the entire song. There's a few more details I want to discuss. Moving from the transition from part 1 to part 2, I muted the drums here, for instance. So that sounds, there's a little bit more space, and you hear the snare on its own without the kick. So I think that's a really nice way of creating a little bit of tension before going to the next part. So simply by muting one part, the drums in this case, you create a little bit of space and a little bit from, oh, what's happening now? And then you go to the next part. Yeah, so that was it for this track breakdown. So just to recap, I started just playing around with the Arturia Drumbrute Impact. And I think it's great to use hardware in this way, just to have sort of as an inspiration and as a start of a track where you have hands-on control and you create something. And in this case, I just recorded the mono out into Ableton with all the sounds together. It's not ideal because you don't have control over the individual sounds, but sometimes when you start working, you want to work fast and don't get held back by these kind of details. I was going to record it separately later, but then I didn't do that. And you might have noticed that there's no actual bass line in this track, and that's because the kick of this Drumbrute Impact is so massive, and I had the decay all the way open, or almost not entirely open, but it was open for quite a lot. So you get this really long tail and it's very low. So it would, yeah, it filled up the low end pretty good. That's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Keep making music and see you in the next one.